Mark Skaar bringing in author Robert Lawson to talk about Still Competition, the listener's guide to Cheap Trick. Robert, pleasure to finally talk to you.
Yeah, great to talk to you as well.
And a year or two ago, you put out a fabulous book about Nazareth, and my eyes just lit up when I saw it because I thought, hey, nobody's done anything on Nazareth, which I'm assuming is why you did that book. We can touch upon that before we go into Cheap Trick. We can talk about Nazareth. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thanks. That was definitely kind of the reason behind it was when I've been a lifelong Nazareth fan. And when I realized that no one had ever written a book about them, I thought, wow, this is an issue. So something needs to be done about it. And when I realized nobody was going to do anything about it, I said, I guess I'm the guy who has to do something about it. So that was, and then Cheap Trick is not too different in the sense that they've been around now for over 40 years, and there's only been one previous book about them.
Right.
And I find that pretty odd for a band whose career is so lengthy and so varied, so many ups and downs. They've had great successes. They've had other times that were more challenging, and there's a real lack of stuff out there on them.
Right, and so you mentioned reputation is a fragile thing, or we referenced it. How do you feel is this book a companion piece, fill in some hole? Obviously, that book kind of stops around 1997, so this one goes up into Bang Zoom Crazy Hello. Yeah,
they're very different. I'm a big fan of Mike's book, Mike Hayes, of course.
Yep.
And he's a good pal. He was available to answer any questions that I had while I was doing my book, and he's very forthcoming and very helpful, very positive. He's a good friend. But it's a different style of book. His is more of a biography and charts more the history of the band, whereas mine is very simply chapter by chapter, looking at all the albums, the singles, TV appearances, radio broadcasts, some bootlegs. We talk about chart action. We talk about tours, but not too much just about maybe interpersonal stuff going on within the band, and definitely nothing about their personal lives or their and anything not related directly to the music. I stay away from.
Right. We're talking with Robert Lawson, Still Competition, Listener's Guide to Cheap Trick. So, with over 20 albums, and you do go album to album, I'm just going to put you on the spot right now. What was your favorite part of doing this?
The research is always a lot of fun. I looked into the Budokan album pretty intensely and all the different anniversary editions of Budokan that came out. But it was also really refreshing to revisit Robin Zander's debut solo album, which I own it, and I just don't play it a lot, and I didn't really have any strong memories of it. So when it came time to do that, I thought I had a bit of an uphill battle, and I ended up, learning a few things myself because I had filed it away and never really looked at it again. So that was really enjoyable to find out more information about that record and who plays on it, and it's really got a lot of different styles, and that was definitely a nice surprise.
What is your favorite Cheap Trick record and why?
Well, I always go back to the debut. The self-titled album, it's just so varied. It's got so many different styles. It really shows Rick Nielsen as an original voice in songwriting. He's got these pop moments and also these dark tones like Daddy Should Have Stayed in High School and Ballad of TV Violence. It also showcases Robin Zander and his talents, that he can do these Beatle-y kind of harmony vocals, and then he can also be the guy that you don't want to sit next to on the bus. Like, he is, the best description I ever heard of Robin Zander was something that Rick Nielsen said in a bonus feature on the Sgt. Pepper DVD, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, Zander can be the good guy or the bad guy in any song. And I think that perfectly describes Robin Zander. So the debut album is just so unique, like a song like Mandocello. I don't know if anyone knew what the word Mandocello meant when the album came out, just a beautiful song, and then you got Hot Love, which is almost a speed metal kind of thing. Just a real original piece of work.
Yeah, I spoke to Rick about it a couple of years ago, and I think he basically said to the effect that really that record encompasses how we sound to this day. If you came to see us live, that would be the one that Jack Douglas captured the spirit completely on that one.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal record. I think any rock fan needs it in their collection. If you only know them from I Want You to Want Me or The Flame or any of their kind of pop hits, the debut album has a mix of, it's got hard rock, it's also got like kind of a punk energy to some of the songs. It's phenomenal. I think it's a shame that the 40th anniversary, which just passed, was not, the album was not celebrated more. It really deserves a deluxe edition, in my opinion.
I agree. We're with Robert Lawson. Still competition. Listener's Guide to Cheap Trick. So then, Robert, what would you say is something that you feel is maybe their most underrated piece of work?
I like the Rockford album a lot. They're sort of in a mode now where they're putting out a lot of records in a short period of time. The records all sound pretty similar to each other. Mm-hmm. The songwriting is pretty strong. But I like Rockford a lot. I like the latest. I like Bang Zoom Crazy Hello actually quite a bit. I would say the 1997 self-titled Cheap Trick, that's where things really kind of snapped back into place after flirting with some commercial success. Once in 97, once they got back to basics, that sort of put them on the path that they're on now, which is sturdy, dependable rock albums. The band sounds great, and they're still doing it. They put out 2 albums last year, plus a Christmas album, and then they had the Epic Archives release of rarities. So they're definitely a ongoing, touring, contemporary band.
And since the Red Hat record, Robert, they've been kind of mining back to those sessions because there was just tons and tons of stuff that was laying around from that time.
Yeah, I tried to mention as many of those as I kind of could. There's almost every album since the 97 album has something that was recorded for 97. So the amount of stuff that they recorded for the self-titled on Red Ant Records, as you mentioned, those sessions must have been incredible because it looks like they had a pool of 40 or 50 songs, and we're still getting the benefits of those tunes. They're still going back to them, which I think is fine. If a song wasn't quite ready in 97 and it turns out it's ready 10 or 20 years later, let's bring it out.
Yeah, and I'm sure you saw the tweet a day or two ago. They're apparently working on something right now as we speak.
Yeah, it's incredible that they're getting older, but they're definitely not slowing down. They're still constantly touring. I wish they would do more headlining shows, mm-hmm. But in terms of recording, almost nobody of their vintage touches them. The Stones they'll put out an album every 4 or 5 years and do one massive tour around the world. Cheap Trick is throwing records out left, right, and center, and while being on the road.
Maybe we can talk, too, about what do you feel the differences are now that Dax Nielsen is in the band versus Bunny Carlos. I know a lot of people like to, the purists aren't going to give the new albums a chance, which I think is unfortunate because, as you say, Bang Zoom Crazy Hello and We're All Right are great records, and Dax is great live.
Yeah, there's there's something to be said for that, and I understand the feelings. People get emotional about it. That's great because it shows that they care. Mm-hmm. Bunny's drumming on the early albums, phenomenal, great drummer. The live shows, just a great drummer. For various reasons, he's not in the band anymore, and I don't know if that's ever going to change. I don't think so.
No.
So they have to go forward, and I certainly wouldn't want them to hang it up because Bun's not there. I wish Bun sort of could still be there, mm-hmm. but That's just not the reality. You know, sometimes when you're a kid, you wish mom and dad still lived together.
Right.
Well, they don't, so we have to move on. And obviously, it's in Dax's blood. He played a lot of percussion and drums at the Silver anniversary show. Mm-hmm. If you watch that DVD, he's on stage for a lot of it with Bun. So he's kind of the right guy at the right time. And as you say, I agree. They're putting out good records. So if our choice is not to have those records, then I say we need Dax in the band.
Still competition. Listener's Guide to Cheap Trick is the book. And you mentioned DVDs. You cover those. You cover Bun's solo record. You cover Robin's 2 solo records, the second of which was out there for a matter of hours. And due to what I understand are politics, we'll probably never see an official release of that.
No, I don't think so. They were in record company negotiations. And when the talks fell, that record was collateral damage. You know, that's and I suspect, I was not able to confirm, that the reason it was released digitally for a few hours was because that might have been part of the contract discussions.
Okay.
That, you know, it at least it has to have some sort of a release to have completed the contract. You know, in the way that I guess a movie to be nominated for the Oscars or something has to have had a theatrical release. Sometimes they'll just sneak it out into a few theaters just so they can say it was released theatrically. So Countryside Boulevard, which is it's a fun record, and I think more Cheap Trick fans would love to hear it. I've definitely got a lot of people who contact me asking, you know, was it ever released? What happened? So there's interest there, but not going to happen.
I think the next thing we need, Robert, is some sort of documentary. I'm surprised that one has not been done.
Yeah, there was talk years ago about a behind the music kind of thing. I think that the band are so private, they keep their personal lives out of the papers kind of thing, that they don't really go for a lot of the drama, and they're not going to talk about any sort of issues like that. They seem very private to me and protective, and that's again probably part of the reason why there's only been the one book so far about them, when there's so many books about so many other bands. You don't see DVD documentaries, you don't see a lot of releases. They've done a few kind of Budokan celebration or anniversary releases, but they don't really do that for the other albums. You know, not only was last year the 40th anniversary of the debut album, it was the 40th anniversary of the second album.
Right, and of course we've got and I asked Rick about this 2 years ago, about finishing the Albini sessions. A lot of fans maybe don't know, but there's when '97 was recorded, the Red Ant record, Albini around that time, Steve Albini, said, "Hey, let's re-record in color," or the band said, "We've got extra time, let's re-record it." And it sounds like going to see the band live. It sounds more like the first album.
Yeah, I in the book I was able to quote from the old Cheap Trick newsletters, where at one point they were saying that they were going to, that those Albini tracks could be bonus cuts that were going to come out, or B-sides. Nothing except for one tune that ended up showing up on the Rock Band video game. That's just been shelved. And now that, Bun's out of the band, that could be part of the issue, that they don't want to look back on stuff from his era. But I don't know. That might not be true. But I think the Albini sessions are really interesting. There's a lot of neat playing on there. It's like you're hearing the In Color album for the first time with a 12-string bass, because that instrument didn't exist when they originally recorded In Color. So I know some people don't like it. They think it's a little too raw, and that's okay. But there just always seems that there was talk about doing something with that, and then nothing. There was also talk about reissuing the Red Ant album from '97, because the band got the rights back to it. And in the newsletter, they stated that Bun was working on the cover and bonus tracks. Well, now here we are all these years later, and that's never come to fruition either.
Yeah, and I think I've read Robin likes that record. I know Rick told me he likes that record. I love that record. So
yeah, me too.
Yeah, it just fell through the cracks because of record label politics again.
Well, the label went bankrupt, which is definitely no fault of Cheap Trick, and so it really just didn't get the audience that I think it richly deserved.
So if people want to find your book, the obvious places, but tell them where they can find your book.
Well, Amazon is the easiest. Canadian readers can actually get it a little cheaper if they just go directly through the publisher's website, which is Friesen Press. But if you're in the States or in the UK or any place like that, Amazon will get you sorted right away.
And there's a hardcover and a softcover.
Yeah, there's paperback, there's hardcover. There is also an e-book for people who read books on their portable devices. But, so yeah, we got you covered.
What's next?
I'm rolling around a few ideas. I'm definitely looking into a third one. I think we got to go with a bit of Canadian content for the third book. Maybe I should just leave it at that for now.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure it's going to be one of Canada's longest running bands, and also a group like Nazareth and Cheap Trick that there's really only one book ever written about them. So there's a vacuum there, hopefully waiting to be filled. And maybe I'm the guy to do it.
Who could it be? Who could it be? Who could it be? I have an idea, but I won't say right now. We'll talk off the air about that.
Okay.
Robert, I could talk about this forever because I'm a huge Cheap Trick fan, but we'll leave it here, and I highly encourage people to check out the book because if you're a fan at all, you need to own this book.
I agree, Mark. I think that there's enough little details and information that even the most hardcore fan, you're going to read something in here that maybe you didn't know before.
Lots of nuggets. Yep.
Lots of little details in there.
Very cool. Robert, thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend.
All right, for Robert Lawson, it's still competition. Listener's Guide to Cheap Trick. I'm Mark Skaar.